for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson. I'm your co-host.
And my name is Jack Prince, your fellow co-host.
With a brand new phone in hand. I love it. No more Samsungs.
It's been a joy. I kept the other one for old time's sake. But no, this is going to be a new experience tonight.
Oh, well, good deal. Well, we've got a few topics to discuss. We have an update on Michigan Republican gubernatorial candidates who were kicked off the ballot for bogus signatures. So we have some court updates involving that. We have yet another mass shooting, this time Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we have Hammer Time this week, and we got to talk about the NRA convention in Houston, Texas, and a lot more stuff happening around here as well. Before we get started with today's show, a couple of reminders that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube by doing a search for Southpaws Radio. And you can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime at Spreaker, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, or Reason.fm by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern. And you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, and KEPJ in San Antonio, Texas. So be sure to listen to us on your local Pacifica station. Before we get into today's show, Jack, you're going to be joining me less frequently for a little while. You're doing some traveling.
Yeah, we're finally, how do I say this, the age of the travel trailer, retired people. I didn't have a trailer. It burnt down, the one that I initially bought. Now I've replaced that. It needed some repairs. And I just got the word that it's ready to roll. So, yeah, we're going to be hitting the Chisholm Trail, but want to stay in touch and, like you said, have a limited time on the radio with you. We can work something out, but I don't know the exact breakdown there. But, yeah, the price of gas may keep us close to home. We may camp in the driveway. Who knows?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I'm glad you said something about gas prices, because just before we started recording, gas prices went up right near my area, Cedar Springs, Michigan, now officially at $4.99 a gallon.
Yep, same thing here in Grand Rapids.
Unbelievable. And this just occurred a day or two after the quote-unquote experts and the media reported, gas could go up as high as $5 a gallon this summer. And guess what? 2 days later, bam, we got $5 a gallon gas. I tell you what,
I've
folks,
heard $6.
Really?
I heard that we really are not past the first quarter of rise. So, they're paying almost 7, 8 out west. It's possible, which I can't imagine how anybody can afford to move anywhere.
Well, I've heard a story that some of the gas stations out west are having to make modifications to their gas pump because they think that it's going to go above $10 a gallon. So they're going to have to put another digit on in order to register $10 a gallon gas. Here's the question I have for our listeners. When are we going to start eating oil executives? Really?
Yeah, find out where they live.
It's beyond time. I keep saying, we say it every week on this show, eat the rich. Today is a good day to eat the rich. I don't mean figuratively. I mean literally. Boil them and eat them. Get a few oil executives. Get a few of these traders in New York. Time to eat them. It's time. We can't afford this, folks. We cannot afford this anymore. The rich can.
Well, the thing is, we've heard every excuse, and after years of very well-crafted excuses, the Ukraine issue now, and of course the European withdrawal from the relationship with Russia for oil, people buy it. They accept some of the excuses, but underneath it, it's runaway greed. Their profits have never been higher. There's no reason why we have to be absolutely suffering. It's only because they are making more money than they've ever made before.
Exactly. And that's the thing, like you said, everybody comes up with all the excuses. Everybody says, well, it's this, it's that, it's the other. Well, I tell you what, Jack, maybe we should go through a list of all the excuses and see how they pan out here with us. Let's start with this one. The gas prices are going up because we stopped drilling for oil in this country. Nope, that doesn't fly. The gas prices are going up because we didn't go with the Keystone Pipeline. Nope, that doesn't hold up either. The
pipeline does not carry refined gas. It's a crude substance that really has no effect on the production of gasoline.
Yeah, and it's crude that's eventually exported. It's the Russians. Since we've banned Russian oil, the gas prices have gone up. We shouldn't have banned Russian oil. Nope, that doesn't hold up either. Let me try this one, Jack. The final one here. The gas prices are going up because of greedy oil executives. There it
Bingo.
is, folks. There it is.
Yeah, and the American public right now isn't just looking at ridiculous gas prices. They're looking at increases in groceries, increase on entertainment, every conceivable part of life, except there's one thing. The standard of life, the standard of living that we've heard about in the past, you listed the excuses of why you have high prices and why we have inflation, right? Let's go back in history and look at what Americans have done when they found it too difficult to meet the price demands. You want to start one? Let's go back to the founding of the country. The price of tea was exorbitant. Yep. Tea was an essential commodity. You could not live without tea. So they protested with the commodity. They dumped tea into the harbor.
Yeah. But, by the way, we should add that they were cowards by disguising themselves as Indians, dumping the tea, trying to blame them.
Absolutely. But it was a destruction of the property.
Yes.
I can remember seeing grapes destroyed, taken out into the streets. The Great Boycott. Again, going at the commodity. And instead of suffering by buying the commodity, making the corporations suffer. There's no organization of the people. There's nobody that can say, let's boycott this good. Let's go to the oil companies and have some sort of demonstration. When's the last, have you ever heard of a demonstration in front of an oil executive's house?
No.
Or a factory, maybe?
No, not at all. It never has happened.
You go to Richmond, you can find any tobacco company you want to find. Right there, big signs,
Absolutely.
Beautiful gardens, flowers.
Yeah.
Walk up and protest them. They killed my family members.
Yeah.
They charge exorbitant prices. These corporations have some kind of sacrosanct wall around them. I can't believe why people don't go protest corporations. Oil industry, pharmaceuticals. How easy would that be? Yeah. How easy would it be to protest? I take a drug, started at $30 a month 3 years ago. I'm up to $110 a month. I'm not going to give the name of the drug, but I know where they make it.
Yeah.
I should join other people that take the same drug at my age and go and protest the price. But we're silent. We just quietly accept our predicament.
Yeah. It's like Carlin said.
That's what the owners count on, the fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant of the big red, white, and blue that's being jammed up their assholes every day.
Yeah, with a dollar sign on it.
Of course. And just like Carlin said.
Because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it.
Yeah, this is disgusting. It's time, folks. It's time for a general strike in this country. Just sit down and do nothing and watch.
But again, let's check our history. We talked about the protests that we had on commodities. How about rent protests? There was a famous one in the United States. Two of them, as a matter of fact. Howard Zinn lists one rather accurately, a renter strike. It's not impossible. No. It can be done.
It sure can.
I don't know. I'm for protest. But what has me worried is just the acceptance. The American public just takes what's handed to them. I don't see any pushback, Darren.
Nope. The only thing that the American public does is bend over and spread the cheeks.
Yep.
Sorry, that's how it is. Yeah, I'm not looking for anything to happen anytime soon. I just don't. I'm fed up. Totally fed up. One other thing that we need to talk about, we have an update from a story that we talked about last week. Last week we mentioned that the Michigan Bureau of Elections voted to disqualify 5 Republican gubernatorial candidates for having bogus signatures of dead people, signatures that were misspelled, people that didn't match the address, the whole 9 yards, and it disqualified 5 candidates. Well, then the actual board, which is 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, they couldn't agree. So that meant that the 5 candidates were off the ballot. It didn't matter because the Bureau decreed it. The actual 4-person board saying thumbs up or thumbs down, since they didn't do either, it kicked back to the Bureau. So several of those 5 that were kicked off the ballot have filed lawsuits that haven't gone very well. I have this story. This is Colin Jackson writing for Michigan Public Radio and National Public Radio. This is dated June 2nd. Several Republican candidates for governor of Michigan, including some of the party's top hopefuls, have been blocked from the primary ballot after signatures the candidates submitted included alleged forgeries. The 5 GOP candidates have said they were unaware of any problems with their signatures. Most are pursuing legal avenues to get on the August 2nd ballot. The developments have upended the race to lead a key swing state. So here's what happened. April 19th was the deadline for Michigan candidates for various offices to submit their filing paperwork with the Secretary of State to appear on the primary ballot. With their filing paperwork, candidates also had to turn in a certain number of valid signatures. Those running for governor had to submit a minimum of 15,000 signatures and a maximum of 30,000. That way, they'd have a cushion in case the Board of State Canvassers, an independent and bipartisan group with members appointed by the governor, determined not every signature submitted was valid. The Republican field for governor initially had 10 candidates, and voters can only sign one campaign's nominating petition. Like in past cycles, campaigns adapted by using a mix of volunteer and paid petition circulators or signature gatherers. Within 7 days of the filing deadline, the Board of State Canvassers or a county clerk can receive challenges to the nominating petitions. Consultant John Yob told reporters after filing signatures with Republican gubernatorial hopeful Perry Johnson, quote, "It's always prudent to look at their signatures. Until you look at them, you don't know whether it's worth taking a deeper look or not. At least flip through them," end of quote. And Jack, by the way, I love you for mentioning this before we started recording. Perry Johnson, the quality guru. You said he looks like a woodpecker, huh?
Yeah. He's as obnoxious as a woodpecker. A woodpecker gets outside your window and it's pecking away on a tree. Some of his campaign rhetoric was absolutely gruesome. But, his maintenance, that he should be put on the ballot. Hey, how about the guy that we talked about him last week that sat in a jail cell for years over 2 bogus so-called signatures on a petition in Berrien County, down in St. Joe, Michigan.
Yes, we actually talked a little bit about the Reverend Ed Pinkney, who went to prison, by the way, for 30 months over, wasn't the signatures, it was the dates printed on the signatures for a recall of Benton Harbor's mayor because he thought the mayor was getting a little too cozy with Whirlpool.
How many thousands of bogus signatures were on these Republican petitions?
Thousands.
These are the Republican candidates that try and make an issue about election integrity. They're up in, I think right now today, aren't they up in Mackinac Island, Darren?
Yeah.
And that's one of their planks in their platform. They're going to restore election integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we've never seen a bigger breakdown of, what's the word, credibility with these petitions, because they're into the thousands. They weren't two misplaced dates like the poor man in Benton Harbor, the African-American man.
Yeah.
There are thousands of these signatures by multiple candidates.
Yeah.
They were talking about election fraud, and when the investigation boiled it down, it was less than just a fraction of a percent of any election fraud nationally. And yet these guys think they can get away with thousands of bogus signatures.
Yeah.
It's incredible. You talk about a contradiction.
Yeah. It's called projection. You know, we've talked
Yes,
about it
it
last
is.
week. Oh, my gosh. Let me continue the story here. Nearly 30 candidates for offices ranging from U.S. House to Circuit Court judgeship eventually faced a challenge by the time that the 7-day period ended on April 26th. Notably, the Michigan Democratic Party targeted 3 of the Republicans running for governor. Businessman Perry Johnson, who we mentioned, former Detroit Police Chief James Craig, and businesswoman Tudor Dixon. Democrats allege evidence of rampant signature fraud in the nominating petitions for Craig and Johnson. They had also argued that Dixon's campaign had signature fraud and that her forms listed an incorrect date. At a press conference at the time, attorney Mark Brewer, former state Democratic Party chair, and by the way, the first guest we ever had on Southpaws, he said this, quote, "You don't see clean petitions with 10 names, no crossouts, every sheet completed, you know? That's just not the way this works. People make mistakes, they cross things out, you get incomplete sheets," end of quote. The Board of State Canvassers agreed to evaluate the candidacy challenges. Ahead of that, on May 23rd, the State Bureau of Elections published a report that claimed that 36 individual paid circulators faked thousands of signatures to take advantage of a payout that reached as high as $20 per signature on average.
Wow.
The report stated this, quote, "Although it is typical for staff to encounter some signatures of dubious authenticity scattered within nominating petitions, the Bureau is unaware of another election cycle in which this many circulators submitted such a substantial volume of fraudulent petition sheets consisting of invalid signatures," end of quote. They've never seen like this. There's one word for it. Unprecedented.
Yeah. Unprecedented, massive cheating.
Fraud.
And I don't care. They can say they had no idea this was going on. You got to make it your idea this isn't going on.
Issues included accusations of a practice known as round-robining. That's when circulators take turns signing a petition with names from a list, sometimes switching pen colors. Other times, circulators allegedly turned in similar signature sheets for multiple campaigns. The signature gatherers had worked across several campaigns. The state attorney general's office is looking into possibly pressing charges against them, which you know Dana Nessel will. The Bureau of Elections report noted it, quote, "does not have reason to believe that any specific candidates or campaigns were aware of the activities of fraudulent petition circulators," end of quote. But after throwing out sheets of signatures from the circulators, the Bureau found many candidates fell below the required threshold to run for office. Those included GOP gubernatorial hopefuls Craig and Johnson. Dixon survived her challenges. Michigan State Police Captain Michael Brown ended his campaign rather than associate his candidacy with signature fraud. Yeah, this is a state cop that had fake, bogus signatures on his petitions. Can you believe it? I can't.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah,
I
this is
can.
egg right on the face of these Republican cheaters. Let's face it. It doesn't get clear. Thousands. Unprecedented is the word.
Yep. The Bureau of Elections report was sent to the Board of State Canvassers, which during an 8-hour meeting on May 26th deadlocked on how to handle the affected campaigns for governor. The 2 Democratic members of the board voted against allowing the candidates ballot access. The 2 Republican members voted the opposite way, taking issue with the practice of throwing out sheets of signatures turned in by suspected fraudsters rather than checking every petition sheet line by line. The tie meant that the candidates were to be blocked from the primary ballot. Common Cause, a nonpartisan group focused on upholding democracy, shared concerns over whether the process was rushed. Quentin Turner, Common Cause Michigan's policy director, said in a statement, quote, "This action is unprecedented, with challengers finding out about their alleged indiscretions just days before pleading their cases to the Board of Canvassers," end of quote. Well, then I guess they shouldn't hire a bunch of crooks then, should they? It's really that simple. It really is. Michigan's Democratic Secretary of State is set to certify eligible candidates by Friday, as some blocked candidates have sued to try to get their names on primary ballots. But on Wednesday, the Michigan Court of Appeals rejected lawsuits from Perry Johnson and fellow gubernatorial candidate Michael Markey, a financial advisor. Markey pledged to take his fight to the state Supreme Court, where he will probably get his ass handed to him. Then on Thursday, the Michigan Court of Claims denied Craig's appeal. Craig, too, says he'll take the fight to the state's highest court. Again, he'll get his ass kicked there, too. In a statement, the former, by the way, once again, former police chief of Detroit, evil, violent, conservative traitor hiding behind a badge, said this, quote, "The voters should be deciding who their candidates are, not an unelected board of government bureaucrats," end of quote. I just love how they love to go after bureaucrats. If it wasn't for the bureaucrats, this country would fall apart. I got news for you. Unbelievable. If all else fails, running as a write-in candidate is an option for both the primary and general elections. Michigan is a battleground state, with conservatives both in the state and nationwide taking an interest in unseating incumbent Governor Gretchen Whitmer. By the way, I'm going on record. I'm voting for her this year. If you don't like it, too bad.
Why wouldn't you vote for her?
Yeah,
I am as well.
Exactly. The Democrat has repeatedly sparred with the Republican-led state legislature across her tenure so far. Regardless of pending litigation, Whitmer will take on a relative political newcomer as the Republican nominee. Despite reported turmoil within the Craig campaign and Johnson's late entry into the race, both appeared in relatively strong positions before last week's developments. The DeVos family has endorsed Tudor Dixon, so that's where their money's going. However, she hasn't done crap in the polls, which I love.
Who is the front runner, Darren?
I don't think there is one now. It had been.
It's not Ryan, is it, from Allendale?
No, I would say among the ones that are still in it, probably Kevin Rinke, because he's the only one that's spending money on any sort of political advertising. You know, Rinky-dink.
Rinky-dink, yeah.
Yeah.
Guy drives around his Camaro convertible on his campaign ads.
Actually, I think that's a Pontiac GTO, but what do I know?
Is it a Pontiac?
I'm pretty sure it is. That's what you get when your mom's boyfriend is a GM retiree.
Oh,
Yep.
Yeah, I drive around in a 1997 Mazda pickup truck. I just realized that's a classic car now. So I have a classic car, Darren.
Yeah, you can get the special plates for a 25-year-old car. By the way, are you going to get the Winter Wonderland plates that they just put out?
I love those.
The old throwback
those bring me back to my
plates.
boyhood. I remember those. Yeah.
I sure do, too. Oh, my God. Well, I tell you what, Jack, let's move on to something that's a little more serious here. Actually, a lot more serious. We've had
Is this the episode in South Haven, by any chance?
No, I was actually going to get to that. Let's start with Tulsa, though. There's been another mass shooting.
Yeah.
Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is Jacob Factor writing for Tulsa World newspaper. This is dated June 2nd. Tulsa police described a catastrophic scene inside a medical office building in South Tulsa where 5 people died, multiple more were injured during a mass shooting Wednesday afternoon. The shooter, who took his own life, was armed with a rifle and a handgun as he entered St. Francis Health System's Natalie building and began shooting both guns just before 5 p.m. Police say the shooting occurred in an orthopedic clinic on the Natalie building's second floor. St. Francis Hospital's online directory says Warren Clinic Orthopedic Surgery and Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Urgent Care is located on the second floor. They have 9 physicians listed. The shooter's identity has not been released by police, by Wednesday night. I do believe they have released it by now. And again, we're not going to mention his name. The exact time the shooter began firing is not yet known. The first 911 call was reported to officers at 4:52 p.m. Tulsa time. The first officers arrived 4 minutes later. They could hear gunshots leading them to the second floor, where they made contact with the victims and the shooter at 5:01. So within 10 minutes, this was all done and over with. Tulsa police say there were multiple injuries. Again, they're saying 5 dead. One of those is the shooter. And apparently what happened was the guy that did the shooting was a patient of that orthopedic clinic and was still experiencing pain, and apparently just decided, hey, might as well just get rid of him.
You got a beef with your doctor? Just go blow him away.
Yep, exactly. That's what this country's come down to.
Yeah, I think as we speak, or just relatively close to this moment, Biden is either addressing the country or has addressed the country. Earlier today, they had a hearing. Jordan, the wrestler with checkered past, the wrestling coach from high school.
Yeah, Jim Jordan.
So this is just a political stunt by the Democrats to make a political issue out of these shootings. That AR-15 is a killing weapon of choice. It's not just like any other gun. Conservatives say, well, it's just you got to pull the trigger like any gun. It's just like a .22. It's not. The ammunition has 3 times the velocity. When that shell hits, it explodes. The damage is absolutely gruesome. The physical damage they inflict. And lo and behold, again today, they said, yesterday he was carrying a rifle. I said to the friend I was with, I said, it'd be an AR-15. And today it was announced it was another AR-15.
That he had bought 1 hour before the shooting, by the way.
Yeah.
So
these conservatives connect these dots. They go, I got an upset feeling about I can't get a job or whatever it is. AR-15, that's the answer. Get it. Kill somebody. It's being chosen now. 233 shootings since January 1st, mass shootings. Yes. 233. 3 times the rate of any other year. Our country, to the rest of the world, is an absolute madhouse. A bloody madhouse.
Can we dare say that we're a whole country now? Can we say that?
Well, where's the safe place to take your kids? To a concert? To the church? To treatment in a hospital?
Not the grocery store.
There's no safe place.
There is. No, really, there isn't. And, Jack, I am surprised that there are actually new AR-15 models. I didn't know this until you told me this.
Yeah.
So I decided to do a little digging, and I found an article from April 20th published in, of all places, yes, folks, there really is a Shooting Illustrated magazine. I'm not joking.
Oh, wow.
Published by the National Rifle Association.
Of course.
Let me just read a little bit from this article here. 2022 is another banner year for American gun owners who choose to use an AR-15, as the AR-15 continues to be a bestseller with new models and new variants popping all the time. Notice the phrasing that's used. Like Carlin said.
Onomatopoeia, yeah.
Yeah. Credit for this goes to the almost unlimited flexibility of the platform. An almost limitless selection of barrel lengths and calibers are out there now, and your choices and aftermarket add-ons like stocks and handguards is limited only by your imagination and your budget. And then they go through and they list all of these with photos and bullet points on these.
Disgusting.
It is absolutely insanity. This is what it is. This is insanity.
Yeah, it is. It is insanity. We talked about the religious services in Washington where they worship automatic weapons. They have them up on the altar, and people worship them. I'm not making it up. Forget the golden calf.
I was just going to say, Jack, every year in the state of Michigan, there is an event that happens at the beginning of the motorcycle riding season up in Baldwin, Michigan, called Blessing of the Bikes. Mm-hmm. Thousands, literally thousands, tens of thousands of motorcycle riders drive up to Baldwin, Michigan, which is a tiny, tiny little town.
I know where it's at, yep.
And they have a priest put on a stage with PA system, and literally this guy blesses all these bikes. I am waiting for somebody, and I hate to give the idea, somebody is going to do one of these and have a blessing of the guns. Can you imagine that?
Sure. You kidding?
You know,
they're sacred.
You were talking about the church that has all the guns in it. That's the next logical step, right?
It is. It truly is. You see pictures on Facebook of parents with little toddlers holding an AR-15.
Why?
They had a photographer, a world-famous photographer, that came to the United States. You ought to look this up sometime, Darren. He took pictures of families with their gun collections on display. One guy had so many guns, he traced United States out of guns, out of rifles, the whole country, perfectly. Huge. I mean, like 2 acres. Other people, if they lived in Texas, they'd have like the Star of Texas, made with guns. Hundreds and hundreds of guns. This is all across America, every state.
Yeah.
Dozens and dozens of guns. Hundreds of guns in these displays. And the family is sitting there like they're in front of a proud garden of tomatoes. It's absolutely, it's so unique. United States is so, you talk about unprecedented. And this is one of the questions they've been hitting the politicians, the Republicans out in Texas, is that, and they asked us point blank, why is United States the exception? Not the exception with health insurance, the exception with mass shootings. No other country is close. They have mentally fragile people. They have economic woes. They have poverty. They have violent games that kids can hold in their hands. Why are we off the charts in comparison to any other country with the amount of people that we shoot in all kinds of settings? And they have no answer. Cruz was asked that question by a foreign correspondent, and he literally physically ran away from that question. I heard it.
Let's talk about Ted Cruz for a little bit here. I got this story. This is Sarah Bobboltz writing for the Huffington Post. This is dated May 28th. Senator Ted Cruz, fresh off the stage at the National Rifle Association's convention in Houston, sat down to a sushi dinner that was interrupted on Friday by a fellow Texan who confronted the Republican lawmaker over his hardline stance on firearms 3 days after 21 people were gunned down at an elementary school in the state. The end of the confrontation saw the man shouting above security officers walking him toward the door. Have you seen the video of this, Jack?
No.
Oh, my God. This guy, his name is Benjamin Hernandez, is seen in the video as he's being pushed out the door of this restaurant yelling, quote, 19 children died, that's on your hands. Ted Cruz, that's on your hands. End of quote. Yeah, you got to see the video of this, Jack. It is, this guy is a hero as far as I'm concerned.
You did see Beto O'Rourke's confrontation at the table with the unmasked, I guess they were sheriffs. I don't know who they were. But
I can tell you who all was there. The governor, the lieutenant governor, the mayor of Uvalde, Texas, they were all right there on the stage when Beto confronted him. What's their reply? They're calling him a son of a bitch. They're calling him an asshole.
A sick son of a bitch.
Yeah. Their problem is being confronted like this. And I tell you what, Beto O'Rourke, for whatever criticisms that I've had of him, he is absolutely right on this one. You get in these people's face and you tell it straight to them. Yeah.
You confront him. He walked in there all by himself.
Yep. Let me go ahead.
That's what it takes. You've got to confront him on this. And right now, I would tell any conservative, you don't have a thing to say. I don't even want to hear another excuse. Forget your prayers and your thoughts. Forget your excuses. You don't have a thing to say now. You don't. There is no more debate. Stop making this a debate. It isn't a debate. Well, our numbers, our slaughterous numbers, overrule any defense that you have for these weapons. Don't even give them a platform.
No, they don't deserve one. They've had it for 30 years. They've had it for 40 years. Unbelievable. Yeah. By the way, the Beto O'Rourke confrontation is what inspired Benjamin Hernandez to get in Ted Cruz's face.
Good.
He told Huffington Post that he was in Houston because his digital advertising company was live streaming the protest staged outside the NRA convention. When he saw Cruz walk into the same restaurant where he was having dinner, Hernandez said that he thought, quote, oh, hell no, end of quote. He continued telling Huffington Post, quote, A couple of days ago, I had caught that clip of Beto confronting Abbott, and I wrote something to the effect of, confront all these hypocritical assholes like Beto did. And it's really easy to tweet, right? But then 2 days later, Ted Cruz is walking in this space where I am, and it's like, okay, I have to go talk to him now. End of quote.
You have to. You would do it, Darren.
Yeah?
If Cruz walked into a restaurant, you were sitting there, I know damn well you would confront him. And notice what the man said. He said, I have to. I have to. You can't sit back and watch this murderous slaughter go on and not take a stand. We talked about protest, and I haven't got any to confirm right now. There's going to be protest nationwide. I don't have the details, folks, but I urge you, when you hear of that protest, I don't care how nice it is, how many hamburgers you want to grill, get into that protest to protest gun violence, to protest no background checks, to protest the sale of these slaughterous AR-15s. There's things out there that need to be addressed, just like this guy stood up in a restaurant face to face.
Yep. Although other Republican lawmakers dropped out of the NRA event after the shooting in Uvalde, Texas, Cruz kept his scheduled appearance, delivering a speech where he argued that guns were not to blame for the deadly incident. At the restaurant, Hernandez pretended to pose for a picture with his arm around Cruz while a friend began surreptitiously recording a video that captured him turning to Cruz to talk about gun policy after the fake video. Cruz can be heard responding, quote, I would encourage you. I gave about a half-hour speech today at the NRA convention. I encourage you to watch it. End of quote. Hernandez, speaking quickly, implores him to explain his stance on gun control in the wake of the Uvalde shooting where 19 children and 2 adult teachers were killed. He says, quote, background checks, is that so hard? End of quote. Cruz glances back at the person filming, appearing to realize what's going on, then tells Hernandez, okay, you don't want to listen. No, we don't want to listen to you, Ted. Matter of fact, Jack, I don't know if you've seen this on my personal Facebook page, but I posted a picture on my personal Facebook. It's Ted Cruz wearing a white T-shirt, and right at the collar are testicles.
Yeah.
Because Ted Cruz is a dickhead. Just going to say it. Just going to say it.
Yeah, forget woodpeckers.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Let me continue here before we get in any more trouble. Hernandez then stopped speaking, allowing Cruz to say the Democrats' proposals, which he did not define, would not have stopped the shooter. The 18-year-old shooter who died at the scene waited until his birthday to legally purchase 2 AR-15s and more than 1,600 rounds of ammunition. Hernandez then tells Cruz, quote, you can make it harder for people to get guns in this country. You know that? You know that. But you stand here. You stand at the NRA convention. It is harder. It is harder when there are more guns to stop gun violence. End of quote. At that point, security officers positioned themselves between Cruz and Hernandez, escorting him to the door. The 2-minute video was shared by Indivisible Houston, a progressive activist group which identified Hernandez as a board member. Another patron of the sushi restaurant captured the interaction from another angle as Cruz's security began forcibly leading Hernandez away. Hernandez told the Huffington Post, quote, the time for civil discourse and debate, when they allow it, which they don't, that's over to me. End of quote. And you know what? He is absolutely right. I've said it for years on my personal Facebook, and I'm just going to say it right here, right now. F*** civility. Hernandez continued, quote, it is uncomfortable. Yes, it was uncomfortable for me to go and do that. That's not me. My mom was even surprised that I dropped the F-bomb. But this week has had me dropping F-bombs because I'm just so incensed that they would stand there and not do anything about it. End of quote. He said what surprised him most about Cruz's reaction was how canned it seemed. Cruz had given the same response about Democratic proposals to a Sky News reporter who pressed him on gun control measures earlier in the week. Quote, you're directing me to your 30-minute speech and you just can't answer a simple question? Background checks. Can't we start there? End of quote. Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it.
You've got to key in on this man's confrontation. That's what is necessary now. I'm not a huge CNN supporter, but they had a brave journalist, track down the address of the chief of police there in Texas that made the order, announced the order to stay away, don't go into that room. I think it was even surmised that he said you're liable to get shot, so, he wasn't going to give the order for 70 minutes or whatever it was. A journalist tracked him down, pinned him down, caught him, asked him, said, why did you do that? What's behind that decision? On and on it goes. Caught him outside his house. It wasn't staged. Good. That's real journalism.
Yeah.
And Americans need now to be creative. And how you get the Cruzes, how you get these police chiefs. I'd love to run into this Becker, prosecuting attorney, here in town who has stretched out this delay. For how long? When was that shooting?
Beginning of April. Beginning of April. It's been 2 months now. 2 months. And now he doesn't even have some BS excuse. He's just dragging his feet because he knows there'll be a reaction. Yeah.
You bet on Memorial Day. What, is it going to be Labor Day?
It might be at this point. 4th of July. That's the next big holiday. Yeah. Let's continue talking a little bit more about the NRA convention in Houston, the gathering of evil, violent, conservative traitors. This is Joseph Hudak writing for Rolling Stone magazine. This is dated May 28th. Did you hear about the concert, Jack? The concert that they were going to have at the NRA convention that they had to cancel?
Who's going to play, Nugent?
No, I've got the list here. So the NRA's Grand Old Night of Freedom concert has been canceled. Country singer Jacob Bryan, the last man standing after 6 of the 7 performers slated to perform, pulled out of the show following the Uvalde school shooting. He tweeted on Friday that, quote, the show was canceled yesterday, end of quote. The concert was to be held that Saturday night at the NRA convention. Let me see here. While there's been no official statement by the NRA, Bryan's tweet and a dead link to the concert's webpage point to no show. An email by Rolling Stone to the NRA requesting comment went unreturned. But during the NRA annual meeting of members on Saturday, the organization's president, Charles Cotton, told members, quote, we had to cancel that, end of quote. An email sent to ticket holders confirmed the cancellation and said a full refund would be issued. The email read in part, quote, all remaining scheduled events are still taking place. Please join fellow Second Amendment patriots for the remainder of this freedom-filled weekend, end of quote. Yeah.
So they'd have some difficulty pulling this whole weekend off. I mean, Abbott had to send a tape message, right? Mm-hmm. And a couple other chicken specials did the same. They couldn't go down there and show their face. I guess the NRA is suffering economically.
Yes.
I guess the NRA has had lawsuits, but it still breeds hatred. It's still, it's hanging in there. I got a feeling the conservatives will make sure it will never fold. It's not going to go away.
I don't think it will either. Please join fellow Second Amendment patriots for the remainder of this freedom-filled weekend. Ugh. Yeah, that just made me physically ill having to read that.
Well, I am as equally just sickened by the situation here in our own state where the hypocrisy of the police and the, what I'm heading towards, the murder of a man shot behind the head was almost the same exact scene was set up in South Haven.
Yeah. Let's get to that in a minute here. Let me read you the list of the country artists and other musical artists that were scheduled to appear. Here's the list, Jack. You're not going to believe the first one that pulled out. Don McLean. Bye Bye Miss American Pie.
Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry.
You got it. The second one to pull out, Larry Gatlin of the Gatlin Brothers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, here's what he said in a statement. Quote, I cannot in good conscience perform at the NRA convention in Houston this weekend, end of quote. He then called for background checks and asked that the NRA reconsider some of its, quote, outdated and ill-thought-out positions regarding firearms, end of quote. Well, I guess that check's not going to get cashed, is it? That's going to get canceled real fast.
I got to give him some credit for that.
Yeah, surprisingly, he's as conservative as you can get. By the way,
Sure
do you know that he's doing a TV commercial with Mike Huckabee for some sort of product, and I can't remember what it was. I've seen it on TV. It's like, okay, there's two jerks right there. God. The next one to cancel, Lee Greenwood. I hate Lee Greenwood.
Canceled? Are you kidding me about Proud to be American?
Yeah.
That's bad sign.
I hate that fucking song, Jack.
Oh, my God.
I would burn every single copy of that song if I could get my hands on them. The next one, Danielle Peck, T. Graham Brown, who makes appearances on Country's Family Reunion, and Larry Stewart of the band Restless Heart all subsequently bailed, leaving Bryant, an up-and-coming singer-songwriter, the lone name on the bill. After being criticized on Twitter for his scheduled appearance at the NRA concert, Bryant tweeted that the show was off. So,
wow.
And we might as well just go right into the next segment.
Stop! Hammer time!
Oh yeah, it's hammer time. It is time to drop the hammer on the douchebag of the week. This person is very familiar with this award, Donald John Trump. By the way, Donald Trump, at his remarks at the NRA convention, said, quote, "Unlike some, I didn't disappoint you by not showing up," end of quote. No, you disappointed me by not dropping dead, you orange pig. Oh, I hate him. I hate Donald Trump. Yeah. Well, here's what he had to say about gun laws. This runs about 12 seconds. Here's his comments from the NRA convention.
The existence of evil in our world is not a reason to disarm law-abiding citizens. The existence of evil is one of the very best reasons to arm law-abiding citizens.
Bullshit.
That was their talking point from the very first interview with Abbott. They got their game plan all out. Call these shooters evil. And evil can only be stopped with force. It's not a matter of a kid that was bullied. It's not a matter of having gun accessibility or a sick society that bullies kids. These are just, there's an evil out there. And the only defense we have against evil is to arm. It's the masculinity of Jesus. It's the Christians out there fighting with weapons to stop evil. It used to be prayer. That would stop evil. Yeah. It used to be refraining from evil. Now you got to fight it, bub. You got to get the AR-15, and that AR-15 is going to go out there, and it's going to fight evil. That's what they are promoting, like the teacher who had the kid throw a rock and hit somebody. She calls everybody in and says, hey, that's the wrong thing to do. Here's your own personal rock. Now you can go fight those who have rocks. And by the way, I'm going to carry a rock now behind the school desk here. Forget the apples on the desk. I got rocks. If anybody comes at me, I'm going to throw this rock. That is the mentality of these children out there. Yeah. Fight the guns with more guns.
I wish the conservatives would go kick rocks. I really do. So, Donald Trump, you win again, buddy.
Don't be a douchebag.
Yeah, that's right. Donnie, little hands, to match your little penis. Stop being a douchebag. Before we move off and move into South Haven here, one final hero that I want to talk about. San Francisco Giants manager Gabe Kapler, last week Friday, said that he is no longer going to stand for the national anthem. He said that he is, quote, not okay with the state of this country, end of quote, and said that he, quote, felt like a coward, end of quote, for not protesting, quote, the lack of delivery on the promise of what our national anthem represents, end of quote. Kapler told reporters before Friday's series opener in Cincinnati that moving forward, he does not plan on taking the field for the national anthem, quote, until I feel better about the direction of our country, end of quote, and that he needs more time to consider specific actions he might suggest be taken to prevent more tragedies of this type, including stronger gun control laws. This man is a hero.
Yes, he is. And you can say it's because he lives in a very liberal, he coaches in a liberal city, San Francisco. But I think he'd do it if he was in Kansas City or Cleveland or wherever. He's a man of principle. And now I see that L.A. has hired Colin Kaepernick, another athletic familiar face who stood out and went to a knee protesting at the display, or when the American flag was displayed at the national anthem.
Yeah.
Both of them heroes. And I really believe, just like the basketball coach who blew his top at a press conference, when these athletic leaders, these men that kids look at by the millions, in the playoffs and the hockey finals, when these guys speak up like that, it's a sledgehammer. It's powerful. And there's all kinds of heroes. This hero is making an impact, this man in San Francisco.
Yes,
our hats are off. Southpaws hats are off to you, and we ask you to keep it up, and I hope it spreads.
Yeah, I tell you what, my 84-year-old mother won't stand for the national anthem, and she hasn't for a number of years. She refuses to do it. What are you going to do, get in the face of an 84-year-old woman from Kentucky? Let me just tell you, that's not a good idea.
No. Every woman I know from Kentucky, you don't want to get in their face.
Including your girlfriend, Jack.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
They're tough. They're real tough. They're honorably tough, though.
Well, let's talk about some folks who aren't tough. Let's talk about what happened in South Haven, Michigan, which isn't too far from where we are. A guy, 33-year-old man who has been identified finally. The police have a warrant out for his arrest. On Tuesday, apparently went up to people and was making threats. Was he carrying a gun, right?
Well, it was reported to the police that he was armed. So their reaction should have been indicative of that awareness. It wasn't, but we'll continue that when we get to the story.
So the cops are called on him. They come out and they confront him. And he's being uncooperative. And he runs. He takes off. He goes into a house, not his own house, somebody else's house, and escapes out the back. And now the cops couldn't find him for 2 days. This has been we're recording this show on Thursday, June 2nd. It has been 2 days, and they just now today issued a release saying, this is who we're looking for. Here's his mugshot. Oh, by the way, one of the charges that's facing him is habitual offender. So this guy has got a pretty lengthy rap sheet. So here's the problem we have with this, Jack, and I'm pretty sure this is the same grievance that you have. South Haven police let this guy run, and they haven't been able to find him for 2 days. Where Grand Rapids police, because a black man ran from the cops, he got tackled, put on his belly, and a bullet was put right through the back of his head. And it's been 2 months, and the prosecuting attorney hasn't done a damn thing about it.
Well, we've used the word precedence a lot.
Yes.
And the precedence in this case is in one city, 50 miles away from another, a person flees who was unarmed, who knowingly was unarmed, who wasn't threatening anybody, and was tackled, was not allowed to flee, was tackled and assassinated, murdered. We have, from what I understood, and I talked to the news reporter today down in Kalamazoo, it wasn't a single policeman like the incident here in Grand Rapids. It was a number of policemen who were around this person who was threatening people. I say that because it would have been even easier to apprehend him. He was being interrogated. You can't be too far from a person if you're going to be interrogating. It's not like he was up on his porch and he decided to take off running. He was being interrogated. And somehow he was able to flee. A number of policemen thought to be armed. He was allowed to run. You wouldn't draw a bead on the back of this person and multiple shooters and take him down to stop the threat. A man fleeing with an arm. No, it wasn't done. But you saw the picture. He's Caucasian.
Yeah.
And there he is, Darren, escaped. Could be imposing, threats to somebody. He's still a danger to the community. He was allowed to run. How do you hold that in any fairness in comparison to assassinating and murdering a young man here. And is there a journalist who has enough ink in their typewriter to mention this? Is there anybody out there that can say, look at the difference between the GRPD and the Grand Haven Police?
South Haven Police.
Excuse me, South Haven Police? This should be elucidated.
Yes.
We know a couple of journalists. We talked earlier. I know we talked earlier about one who's going to take this and run with it. I've already had some communication from him. I'm not going to mention his name. Just before we got on the phone, Darren. Yep. He'll take this comparison and he'll run to the public's attention with it, unlike the corporate-fed journalists that I'm afraid flood the market. This is an additional charge against the Kent County Division of Criminality in that, A, they shot him in the first place, and B, now they're doing nothing about it. There's no charges being brought, and we're weeks and weeks away from the shooting. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and real quickly, Jack, because we are starting to run out of time, glad you mentioned Patrick Lyoya as well, because our friend Jeff Smith at Grid has a great article dated June 1st. The headline reads, "What I learned at the press conference hosted by the Grand Rapids Association of Pastors, speaking out on the GRPD killing of Patrick Lyoya." And this coalition includes, guess who? One of the members of their executive team is the Reverend Nathaniel Moody, who also is a Grand Rapids City Commissioner. So I don't expect anything to happen.
Well, he didn't sign a statement. He didn't sign a statement that said there should be a handoff of this case to a prosecutor outside of Kent County.
Yes.
He didn't sign it.
Yeah.
Big Moody, I know him. I know his son who got promoted through the GRPS system unbelievably fast as an educator. The name Moody is synonymous with a funeral home in the community. His role playing's got a hole in it. He didn't stand for what these black ministers said, as tame as it was. He couldn't even sign his name to it.
No, because then he would be ostracized by his fellow commissioners. And he's part of the problem. He's not part of the solution.
He's part of the white power establishment in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Plain and simple.
Yep. You know what we call those type of people? Sellouts. He has sold this race out. Sorry to say it, but I'll say it right here on this show. And I back it up, Darren, right here in Southpaws. I'll identify with that moniker that you just put on him. It's perfect. Yep. Well, Jack, we are out of time for this week. An hour goes by fast, as it always does on this show.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Lots to talk about.
Yep. So, folks, we'll be back next week. I'm Darren Gibson.
I'm Jack Prince.
Please support independent media, the First Amendment, and a woman's right to choose.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.